Oh, thank you, Sierra, or whoever did that. So for those of you who were not who did not attend the research forum last semester, this is sort of part 2 of an activity that we started back then. It was Andy Rominger's idea to have the activity. And since then, it's kind of grown into a larger, wider discussion about what our kind of research products are going to be from Maine-eDNA, and kind of mapping those out so that we know what everyone else is working on. People can get their names on things. People won't get surprised by anything if they find out someone else is working on something related to their interests, or they might team up and form a collaboration, internal collaboration on something. And so we started this Google Doc, which if you click through, you'll see I think it's like 14 pages now. And it's a place where you can just put in a placeholder for a project paper that you think you're going to write eventually. Doesn't have to be like in the next year or something, but from anything from Maine-eDNA. And then you put yourself as the author or whoever the author is, and other people can express interest in being involved. For example, if you look at that first one, Andy typed in understanding eco-evolutionary processes in the Gulf of Maine with the role model, and a few people, Mike, Phoebe, and Doug, wrote that they were interested in talking with him, I guess, about it initially and being part of that potentially. So that's sort of an expression of interest. And some other bit of context I wanted to give on this, and Andy should be here in a few minutes, but we had a meeting on last Tuesday among Maine-eDNA leadership, scientific research leadership, I guess, is the best way to describe that. So the theme leads and some other folks, co-PIs on the project. And we discussed what the synthesis products from Maine-eDNA would be. So there's a subtle difference between that and the discussion we're having today. So synthesis products are things that we want to get out of the wider project, like the big data sets, like the index sites project. Products that would not necessarily be dreamed up by one person and completed by them in their lab, but big collaborative sorts of approaches. This that we're doing today includes those things, but also includes folks telling in the doc or in the Zoom about their own projects. It doesn't have to be a big, idea for a synthesis project for you to enter something into this document. It could just be what you're planning to publish from Maine-eDNA. So it doesn't have to be, use the index sites data or anything like that. You can put in here whatever it is that you're hoping to work on, hoping to produce. So before we jump in, and maybe we can just kind of do a quick review of what's in there first. I see you, Mike, hang on. We'll maybe people who have entered things into the document or plan to enter could say a little bit about what those projects are, what their projects are that they're putting in. Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to also tie this to our recent response to the site visit. Again, a lot of folks participated in some of the EPSCoR site visit before, and I know the process kind of runs on from there in the background and so on. We got our comments back from NSF. They gave us low balls. They were very impressed with our project overall, I'd say. The biggest one that they had, though, that they led right in with is, how are we going to synthesize? How are we going to tie together the projects, come out with big information about macro systems? How are we going to deal with scale and tying in environmental variables? It's all kind of a mishmash around those things. Synthesis was their thing. And so part of our responses to this was, well, we're entering that phase of the project now. So on the top of everybody's heads should really always be, recognizing that this next year and a half, we're going to be talking a lot about what data do we have? Where do we have it? How do we get it together in a certain place? What are we going to do with it? How do we synthesize it? What sort of questions can we ask that are focused? What sort of questions can we ask as a team? What sort of questions are we asking that map to our partners' needs versus understanding eDNA better? I think you're going to hear a lot of the uses of the word synthesis and mapping and gathering in the coming year. Those will be Maine-eDNA's big buzzwords. And this is, part of that. We already indicated in the response to the VSV that we started this process, and this is a big step in seeing kind of the landscape of what people are thinking for products for Maine-eDNA, and then what could be that second order set of products for Maine-eDNA, the integrative pieces.
Thanks, Mike. That was a better summary than the one I gave ad hoc. But I see Andy is here to rescue us. Hi, Andy.
That's a tall order. That's a tall order.
I
yeah,
gave
sorry,
a little
it's late.
intro to the Google Doc and kind of also mentioned that we had that meeting last Tuesday. And Mike brought in that it's also tied to the virtual site visit response.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thanks for being here, everybody, and thanks for waiting for me. We've got a dynamic childcare situation, so I was on campus, and then I had to get home, and now I'm home, and you all are on Zoom, and that's where everyone is. So what I was thinking, last semester we had a meeting similar to this one where we looked at this doc that Karen put in the chat. Thank you, Karen. And started populating it with projects. And we said, hey, let's revisit this next semester. So I think the idea is to revisit this doc to see if anything's changed, to see if we can add anything. But I think most excitingly would be building off what Mike and Karen were talking about, looking for opportunities to synthesize via collaboration. So, if you present me with a problem, it's going to look like the right kind of nail for the right kind of hammer that I have, and that's not very synthetic. But if you bring people together who have screws and nails and wood glue and everything else, you'll get something more synthetic. So synthesize by collaborating rather than trying to synthesize all in one head is the idea. Maybe it's worth also, this is what I'll propose. Let's start by talking about the purpose of this document. Then we could talk about any new thing that folks want to advertise as a project where they're looking for collaborators or anything like that. And then finally, if we have time, we could kind of try dreaming up one or two new things to add that draw from multiple expertises or multiple expertise from this group. How's that sound, everybody?
Sounds good. Andy, I put in the chat, I could swear I entered something in this document and I don't see it there. So I'm just wondering if there's either I'm misremembering or there might be another version of this floating around. I just wanted to double check.
What was the project you thought you entered?
Terrestrial species detection from the index sites.
That's in here.
It is?
It's on page.
I searched for my name and for the word terrestrial.
Interesting. Yeah, both. This
there
is
it
the
is.
Project. Detecting terrestrial biodiversity in aquatic eDNA samples.
Phew. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry for the alarm. Okie doke. So yeah, the point of this document, and like folks mentioned, maybe some of us got together at Colby last week to talk about kind of progress in in data generation and, next steps for its analysis and all that. And the concern came up, how are we going to make sure that we don't accidentally scoop ourselves? One team in Bigelow is working on a project and us at UMaine are like, we should do this, but, without realizing that, the Bigelow folks are already doing that. So, that's the idea of this document. So we've been trying to have this in place to avoid that type of situation and rather be able to work together. So that's kind of the idea. The idea is, I don't want folks to be worried, like if they put an idea here, someone's going to steal it. The intention is the opposite, to all get a place to work together when we do so much stuff remotely and on computers anyway. Might as well have that on the computer. We discussed how maybe this is not the most easily searchable, as has been demonstrated already, but so we could discuss different formats. I don't really have the capacity to spin up a different format, but we could discuss that if people are interested. But we also talked about last week having kind of the protocol in our community that, especially as data like from the index sites starts entering our database, and we, the point is that anyone with the internet connection can go to our database website and just download bucket loads of data and work on it. So having a protocol where you consult this list of project ideas to make sure what you're downloading the data for is not already on someone else's radar, and to put your ideas in here, again, to kind of bring people together, especially as we have this really, really incredible resource that'll be coming online soon. We want to maximize the fairness and transparency and mutual benefit that it can give to us all. Any questions about that?
No
Just,
big question. Oh, go ahead.
On the topic of format, Jen Smith Mayo put in the chat. It would help maybe just to put like a menu or outline at the top where you can click down to certain projects and by researcher name.
Yeah, Jen, do you have any experience creating that dynamically?
No, more by hand.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to create some type of a little thing that you write into it. What do you call that? Where you you can do this in Photoshop, an action where it automatically can fill something. I don't know if Google does that or not.
No.
I do something similar. I just do it by hand.
I think Google Docs will do it if you change like the text format to a header, some
Right.
form of header. You can insert an automatic like table of contents.
Right.
Yeah. So you go put it in the chat.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam. Yeah. Table of contents could definitely work. It would be searchable. Yeah, we could think about that. I've got
It creates an automatic like document outline too.
Right.
That's clickable.
Cool. That might work for us. Thanks.
Andy, I really like the idea like we're doing right now of revisiting this regularly. I think that's an important piece to it. So, if it could be a first research forum of every semester and or at the all hands meetings, like times where we are supposed to touch this document regularly.
Totally.
That's a very good idea, Christina.
Yeah, thank you for that, Christina.
And I guess, again, we just want to emphasize the culture of it is, just when people add names of interest, That's not a presumption that they're automatically authors, of course. Everybody has to meet the requirements and criteria, that the group establishes, for authorship, things like that. Responsible authorship is important. Just adding your name that I want to be on a paper is not that criteria. It's being part of the team that does that. And that's something that any of these teams should have discussions about as they get going, on projects. And similarly, the people who are leading them, can sort of decide the scope and other pieces, of that team as well. So you note in some places people put down interested or confirmed or things like that. This is just about establishing connections. It's not about establishing a contract in that sense. It's about the communication and facilitating and hoping people having conversations early in the process more than anything.
Also, the Science of Team Science Working Group has had some discussions about authorship criteria, authorship issues, how to resolve them. And it would be great if at some point it would be great if these two conversations could sort of merge. Like, do we want to establish a set of guidelines about establishing authorship, that kind of thing? So that might be a good all hands type activity.
Yeah, this is something that was Heather leading some
Yeah.
calls for this and so on. I mean, I think it's very good and very worthwhile just to give people the landscape of what that looks like and what many of the journals in our fields really hold us to even these days. When you submit to your journal, you're clicking a button that says you agree to their authorship criteria and standards. So it's good for everybody to be aware of what these are.
Yeah, I see some authorship chat in the chat. No, I agree. That would be really great. Yeah, I do. I kind of like the opt-out model myself, which is people can state an interest and they're assumed to be on the author list, given proper contribution. But it just means that, in correspondence moving forward about the project, that they be included. And then it's up to them to opt out of it if they decide they don't want to be included or they don't have the time or, that kind of thing. Obviously, the lead author and perhaps the senior author could also have input of like, well, this person said they wanted to be there and they're on all the emails, but they haven't said anything. So maybe we need to have a conversation if they really want to be in it.
I also want to leave some room for, I guess my standpoint, just not to counter that, but to complement it, Andy, is more that there may be some cases here where there's a very big differential in the relative contributions. Like it's primarily a grad student's chapter, right? And they've led the work a pretty long ways already. And in that sort of situation, I could see it could be appropriate that even though other people are interested in it, in respect for the work that person's done or the smaller committee and the advancement on that, I think it is still appropriate for them to be able to say, I'm glad you have your interest, but we've kind of taken it this far and we'd kind of like to keep our team at this size now for this piece. Just kind of providing some of that balance, right? For
Totally.
synthesis piece is bigger, but sometimes I think it is good that we keep in mind that some people have put a lot of time and effort into some pieces and they may want to keep it a little bit more close.
Right. And, yeah, Mike, I mean, that's at least my intention behind the open to additional collaborators part, right? Like, that's especially, I mean, this comes up especially for chapters and stuff like that, where, And Pete, your point too is well taken. Like, I mean, again, my intention is more than anything to make sure the students, kind of get first dibs, if you will, on this. And it grows out of my own concerns about making sure that happens. Cool. Jen, do you want to mention anything about what you just put in the chat?
Sure. I just put a link to a folder of resources that the Science of Team Science Working Group brought together. And this is just from the early initial stages of the meetings that we've had. So most everybody should have access, I think. If you're not able to, I think we can make sure that that can happen.
Thanks.
And I would suspect that this will grow and form or shape into something more robust over time.
Very cool. Do folks want to have a chance to look through the document, or has everyone kind of been doing that in the background already? In terms of seeing if there's any things folks want to ask questions about, or anyone who's leading something want to give an update about.
I think it's a good use of, to scroll. If somebody wants to chime in about something, if we don't have a person here, we can kind of move on, but
Yeah.
it's good for us to really, as good as this resource is, it's good for us sometimes to hear a little bit of the thoughts of the people that put it in. Sometimes.
Yeah, how about, let's say we give ourselves 5 minutes and I'll come back and interrupt us. So 5 minutes to really read through this, make sure you've actually done it and not, as I've been doing, like scrolling back and forth mindlessly. So 5 minutes, 11:35, and I'll let you know. Cool? Hey, folks, just wanted to say I still see a lot of activity in the dock. So it's been 10 minutes, but I think we can use the time by continuing the productivity in the dock, just so folks know. So keep at it. Great job, everyone. Hey, Judith, was that environmental filtering question about one of my proposed projects?
I think
Yeah.
it was, and I saw it in another paper that I was reading the other day, and I was like, I'm not quite sure what that is.
It
But-
comes very much from the community well, the term I know comes from the community ecology literature, and it's it's kind of like, whether a habitat is suitable or not. So in the assembly of
Ah,
a ecological community, certain species can immigrate there, or certain individuals belonging to certain species are capable of arriving at the place, but they're not capable of persisting there because their requirements are different from what the environment is. So they're
and they get
filtered
filtered
you know,
out.
filtered out
Okay. Hmm.
by selection of the environment.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's one of those things when you're just in that literature all the time, you forget that these terms don't make sense to anybody else.
Well, and a lot of people, like my nephew is same thing where, he thought he was just doing microbiology, and it turns out you end up doing ecology.
You certainly do.
And I think that's what a lot of people are finding. So they're coming at it from different angles and ending up in ecology.
Right.
But they didn't necessarily start out there.
Right.
All of the analysis is a lot of ecological statistics and tools, and
It's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
It's so funny. I know. Honestly, it makes me uncomfortable that a field like ecology, which I feel like has so much left to figure out, is being used in biomedicine. Maybe that's my own insecurities as an ecologist, though. But
yeah,
interesting stuff.
I see what you mean. Yeah, but it is.
Oh, I know. I
Yeah.
know.
Andy, any objections to making this editable by anyone that's a member of the Maine-eDNA general group?
No, I mean, yeah, no, absolutely not, Karen. Yeah, and I saw, Sam and Kyle, sorry about the editing issue. I only just
I'll do that
recently
now.
myself. Thanks, Aaron. See ya. I only just recently got edit access to all the Maine-eDNA Google stuff. I don't know. I feel like maybe we need to fix this generally. Like,
That's
seems like-
strange because you've been in the Maine-eDNA general group for a long time.
No, yeah, I got edit access when I wanted to make this form a couple months ago. If you look at who has permission in our shared drive, a good large proportion of folks can have view access only. Yeah, who's ever running the main EPSCoR account? Yes, that would be who is behind the blue lighthouse. Dan, hey Dan. Yeah, so email Dan. Oh, Dan's maybe not behind the blue lighthouse. Email Dan if you need to have access, I guess.
The
Cool.
weird thing is that when you try to make make it editable by a Google group, you can't find the Maine-eDNA general group, but you can find other groups like Reference Library Working Group, etc.
Well, anyway, Dan will fix it. Dan's the best. He'll get it done. All right. So we've got 10 minutes and some awesome stuff has been put in this document. I'm so excited by it. It kind of seems to me like let me close the door real quick. Well, I don't know. Does anyone need to give any verbal updates about what's going on or want to highlight anything in there for the purposes of attracting collaborators?
I would just like to say something I had put in chat, which is it'd be great if all the grad students could be encouraged to make a placeholder in here for their thesis chapters / papers. I see a bunch in there and that's great, but I also see some missing names and I don't know how best to encourage that, if it's through PI, the advisors or the graduate working group, or I just email. I can remind grad students by email, that sort of thing, but they should get in there. Maybe PIs could put a placeholder, and I've seen a couple people doing this in the document, and ping their grad student with a tag to fill in their project there. Anyways.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you, Karen. I mean, it might be nice if you were to send it out to the students. Although I feel like there's maybe a general issue of fatigue going on where folks are perhaps not reading their emails, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe we can start with that, but PIs can follow up or something like that to make sure it happens. How do folks feel about that? Would you mind doing that, Karen, for the
Oh yeah, no
the
problem.
group? Appreciate it. Cool. All right. Well, does anyone else have anything? I have a little something, a gleam in the eye to offer for the end, but I'll save it if anyone else has ideas or thoughts or concerns or whatever.
Just this kind of raises maybe again another need relative to the VSV sort of thing. It's also just these are kind of like paper ideas in a way, but are there also a way for us to capture maybe conceptual synthesis ideas that are still a step or two away from papers, but gathering ideas about ways people think Maine-eDNA projects might be synthesized? And maybe another separate discussion, like what could we find to do or analyze across theme 1 and 2, or what could is there something, I put an idea at the bottom here, just like we have all these data sets, and could we actually say something about the distributional nature of eDNA data itself and compare that to the field or compare that to partners, scales, patterns, outlier, the fundamental understanding of eDNA data in a way that gets kind of almost to the verge of then if you were modeling eDNA, are you really modeling the processes right? Are you doing some of that?
Yeah.
But there may be other sort of, or is there some sort of like parallel analysis almost every day, other type of analysis every data set could be applied to, right? To see what it looks like, so with some sort of summary function or out of those data sets.
Yeah. No, that sounds really good. And it does sound to me, Mike, like maybe another research forum dedicated to the idea of spitballing or, brainstorming. Some of these ideas would be good. I apologize, I haven't looked recently at the schedule for research forum. Do we have open slots where this would be able to fit in?
Yes, we have
Yeah.
3 later in the semester. We have March 6th, March 20th, and April 17th.
Yeah, we should grab one of those.
Yeah.
I think for something like this, just a real directed discussion of, are there meta things that we can do with everything we're generating?
I mean, I guess
planned cross project collaborations, things like that.
Yeah.
Sort of in line with the synthesis meeting we had last week, you mean? By the way, we discussed projects at that meeting that aren't in this document. I feel like.
Uh-oh, I can't even remember. Well, someone who's at that meeting, let's hopefully.
You were at that meeting.
I was at the meeting, I know, but I can't remember. Dave was taking notes. Maybe he shared his notes. We'll just pillage Dave's notes and
Yeah.
bring him over to this document.
And that was again, but that was also kind of a smaller group too.
Right,
It'd be good to
right,
just
right.
have a much bigger,
No, for sure.
you
For
know,
sure.
group here.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Why don't we, yeah, what were the dates again, Karen? I'm so sorry.
It's okay. March 6th, March 20th, and April 17th.
Okay. When are you coming back, Karen?
After April 17th. So
After
March
April
6th
17th,
is the
okay.
only one I'll be there for.
Okay, why don't we do March 6th then?
Yeah.
I was thinking earlier would be better anyway.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, take the most advantage of then the
Yeah.
time after that meeting to actually get stuff going.
So
And I
how
think we
would I
could take
call
a,
it?
oh, go ahead.
Brainstorming,
Yeah.
Synthesis brainstorming.
synthesis
Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
Maybe,
could use that time too. I mean, a number have been noted here, you know, already here. Maybe there's ways that we can put resources behind some of these or
Oh.
people or energy, you know, to
Yeah.
help prioritize some to move them forward,
that sounds great.
well, as well as generating new ones, you know.
That sounds great. You know, yeah, I'll just offer this as a parting thought. One of the, I mean, obviously monetary resources for getting data generated is always important. But a resource, especially for synthesis stuff that I've seen be really effective, but often not allocated, not in this project, but others, but is administrative help to like
Mhm.
get recurring meetings going, to bring
Right.
the folks together, to keep the momentum going.
Yep.
So maybe for some of the projects that rise to the level of synthesis that thus respond to the VSV could have some EPSCoR office help, as we benefit from so much. And thank you all, EPSCoR folks.
We're
to-
here, whatever you guys need.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. You know, I'm thinking it's just like helping there be a regular meeting that's in folks' calendars and coordinating schedules and, you know, that kind of thing.
I have no problem doing that. And we'll also be hiring a new admin coordinator who can also help with that in the future. Of
Nice. Nice. Thank you, Sierra. Appreciate it.
course.
Cool. That might be all I got. So March 6th, we'll have another brainstorm.
Great.
Cool.
All righty.
Well, thanks everyone for utilizing this doc and for coming up with awesome ideas. Thanks for being here to talk about it all, and see you all next week.
Yeah, and a quick reminder again, reporting season. If theme leads or others ask for info, please try to respond quickly. There's still a lot to do here, and we got to stay on schedule.
Thank you, Mike.